Hello, welcome to Thor Talk, the show all about Marvel's resident god of thunder, where I discuss Thor feats, battles, story arcs, villains, and more. On this episode of Thor Talk, we look at the 700th issue of Thor, in which Thor fights to defend the Norns, Jane fights She-Hulk with help from Throg, young Thor continues to try and prove himself worthy, War Thor returns to face unspeakable evil, and the King Thor of the future enjoys the restored Earth as the Butcher of Worlds approaches. It's a lot, and hopefully you'll enjoy it on Thor Talk.
I am Thor the Thunderer, son of Odin, Prince of Asgard. I am an Avenger, and this world is under my protection.
Whosoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor.
Thor number 700 was written by Jason Aaron in October of 2017. The story picks up with Thor looking into the sap of Yggdrasil and seeing himself in his former glory. He has been called to this spot by Karnilla, the queen of Nornheim. She has asked for him to protect the Norns from Malekith's attacks. The Norns are beings who weave the destiny of everyone in the Nine Realms. They set a fate for everyone and continue to write new stories in their universe. Malekith wishes to kill them so that he can be in control of his own fate. Then, as they speak, Malekith's army of trolls, elves, giants, and men attack. As Thor charges them head-on, we look at Jane Foster catch a hot dog cart that was thrown at her. She throws it aside and resumes her battle with an enraged She-Hulk. She-Hulk throws a truck at her, which explodes, but the two continue to battle in the fiery explosion. Jane then grabs She-Hulk and takes her into the sky. Meanwhile, in Asgardia, Volstagg approaches in chains, as he is about to be locked up to keep him away from the hammer of the War Thor. But the hammer crashes through the ceiling, calling to Volstagg. The others try to hold him back, but he grabs the hammer, and the War Thor has returned. Now we go back to the year 896 AD, where young Thor fights every manner of monster and menace to prove himself worthy to lift Mjolnir. He even defeats Fenris Wolf, but is still unable to lift the hammer. This does not deter him, as he continues to seek out new ways to prove himself worthy. In the far, far future, King Thor's granddaughters tend to the earth, as Thor tells human children of the time he defeated Galactus with the Necrosword. Unbeknownst to Thor, Galactus found the Necrosword, and now uses its power to feast on planet after planet. This angers Ego the Living Planet, who attacks the World Butcher. Galactus punches through Ego's mouth and prepares to eat him. But Ego bites down, cutting off Galactus's hand. After this, the Necrosword bonds to Ego, and Ego the Necroworld devours Galactus. Loki of the future watches this, and says that he sees an ending in sight for himself and for Thor. In modern times, Loki and his father Laufey flee a band of storm giants, but Laufey passes out from exhaustion. On Earth, Throg, the man turned into a frog turned into the Frog of Thunder, finds a man who was murdered in the park. At the roots of Yggdrasil, Thor continues to fight off Malekith's forces to protect the Norns. But Karnilla worries that this isn't enough, so she sends the Norns off, and takes control of their threads of fate. When she does this, she gets a vision of the future. In her vision, Loki wields the Infinity Gauntlet, future Loki wields the Necrosword, Jane lies on the ground, Mangog roars, Valkyrie swings her sword, Namor flies in the air, Frost Giants march, and Thor has a new golden hammer and golden arm. Then, Malekith's forces cause the fortress to collapse on Karnilla. Meanwhile, Throg finds out who killed the man in the park, and causes it to rain on the murderer until he confesses it to the police. Nearby, Jane continues to fight She-Hulk, and she ends the fight by causing a building to collapse on both of them. However, Mjolnir is unable to reach Jane under all the debris, and if she doesn't reach it in time, she will turn back into her human form and be crushed. But Throg finds her and rescues her, and the two part ways. Meanwhile, in Jotunheim, Laufey wakes up from passing out to find Loki sitting by a fire, and Laufey panics knowing that the storm giants must have caught up with them. But Loki reveals that they did catch up with them, and he killed them all. Meanwhile, at the roots of Yggdrasil, Karnilla lies dying in Thor's arms. Before her death, she warns him of Jane's death. In the depths of space, Hela has murdered an entire world, but she is not alone, as Thanos promises her that they will reclaim her realm together, and the two kiss. In deep space, War Thor rockets through the skies until he is knocked onto old Asgard by Tooth Gnasher, one of Thor's goats. War Thor prepares to fight Tooth Gnasher, but something crashes down behind him. Tooth Gnasher charges it, but is grabbed and killed by Mangog. Mangog has returned to enact judgment, and he and War Thor charge at each other. Well, there's a fairly brief summary of a 50-page 700th issue, and there was certainly plenty of things going on. To start off with, it looks like Thor is getting a new golden hammer, and his costume will have a gold theme as well. It seems that Aaron is not yet done withholding Mjolnir from Thor, despite the fact that this story apparently leads up to Jane's death. Speaking of which, don't expect to see Jane dead anytime soon, since this is a 4-part story, with the 4th part coming out in January of 2018. It also seems like Jason Aaron is leading up to a retcon of how Thor became worthy of Mjolnir, as we got to see young Thor try harder and harder to prove himself worthy, and that part of the story didn't really go anywhere, so I expect it will in the next couple of issues. Also, we got another interesting change to the Thor mythos, as Throg now exists in the main Marvel universe. Throg previously only existed in alternate universes like the world of the Pet Avengers, but he is now confirmed to exist on Earth 616. Or everything that has taken place in the Thor comics since Jason Aaron took over has taken place in the Pet Avengers universe. Take your pick on which to believe. Well, that's all for this episode of Thor Talk. If you want to keep up with Thor Talk and all Thor-related news, follow Thor Talk on Instagram at Thor Talk. You can also keep up with and support Thor Talk by simply subscribing. Once again, I'd like to formally state that all art and video is owned by its respective companies, and I own none of it. With that said, see you next time on Thor Talk, where...
You'll behold him.